This is the Last Minute Blues Podcast with Donnie, Alex, Jeremy, and Jeff Burton.
Hey, look at us. It's the Last Minute Blues Podcast. Donnie Fandango, Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN, our homeboy Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic. I just don't know.
Now I'm jumping in on it. Now I'm just going to do it with him.
It's just fun.
I haven't seen JR for 3 weeks. He's just going to boo every time now.
Look at you guys having what now? 2 weeks where you weren't dependent on what a hockey team did as to how your life was going to go?
That's got to be crazy.
Be in the next day. Am I going to Winnipeg or Dallas? Let me just say, my kiddos are probably wishing Daddy is gone. Daddy has come home, and it's like the firm fist of Daddy is back, where it's like, nope, none of this. Well, Mommy lets us do this. We're like, well, Daddy's home now. Mommy works 4 days a week because Daddy's home every night.
Man, that is. I definitely tend to be more of the disciplinarian type in the household. And man,
oh yeah, I'm the jerk.
What a rip!
It's just fun, is it?
Just what a rip, man! Like when you come in, when Mom comes in, hey, Mom's home. Woo! I come home, Dad's home.
Oh man,
cool. Unless I have food, and then.
Yeah, they don't trust your cooking, though, so.
Yeah, that's true. It's getting better.
The other night at dinner, it was all three of them were screaming because they wanted Mommy, and I was like, I'll hold one of you, and they're like, no, I want Mommy. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to go sit over there. I'm going to eat my dinner. I'll say I have very peaceful dinners when it's by myself and no one is bugging me.
My problem with the offseason when it clicks in is I'm so used to for 6 or 7 months using the Athletic credit card because you go out of town to Winnipeg or Dallas or wherever, and you're like, okay, that meal. Now I come home and like, oop, put that away. My daughter's like, can I have your card? I'm like, oh shoot, I have to get the real one.
The one that's actually mine and my wife's. No, man, no.
Yeah, take this one. I will say though, it is fun. I saw your post of you getting to walk with your daughter.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
I know Donnie texted you, man. That is the coolest part about it, especially like now where you get to have those moments and get to go out there and enjoy. That's the really fun part, because for me now, you get to sit outside in the backyard and play with them rather than what it is in the wintertime when you're stuck in the house but you're gone all the time.
Yeah,
so.
It was fun, and for context here, I posted on Facebook that I went for a walk with my daughter. We went to lunch and did some things, just got to hang out, because during the hockey season, you might pass each other in the hallway. Yeah. That's about it. But I couldn't believe, though, you get to Fenton Park and you're going for the walk, and all of a sudden she's 8 foot behind me, 10 feet behind me, and it's like, are you going to walk with me? No, bro. I came with you, but I'm going to stay back here, bro.
Hey, at least she walked. She could have just sat in the car and been like, I'll meet you on your way back.
That is one of the most disturbing things, is when I tell my daughter something, no, we're not going to do that, or I did this. Bruh. Like, who? No. Like, no. I just feel like an old man.
We haven't hit the bruh stage, but they drop the F-bomb every once in a while. Got a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old that drop it.
We haven't hit the bruh stage,
but we got the F-bomb. I think you might have skipped a stage or two.
Oh, I wish I could play the video, but I can't because I haven't bleeped it. But my 3-year-old, my wife put together like a scavenger hunt for her, and my 3-year-old Emma was so excited about it, and her excitement went from, yeah, mother. Drop the F-bomb.
That is amazing.
Yeah. That's on me. I turn into the Sopranos when I get home. Not a big deal. I don't cuss at them. They just overhear me cussing, but that's on me.
Dude, and you know what, man? When a little kid drops the F, I mean, there's just one of the few. There's not much greater than that, really, man.
And it's not just dropping it; it's dropping it in the proper context.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like, oh my gosh, it's like that was impressive.
Well, it kind of fits every context.
It's true. It does work in every area.
It's not like you can use it the wrong way.
Hey, before we, I want to read this email here real quick from a listener. But have you guys been watching a ton of the playoffs and things in the NHL? Yeah, bunches and bunches and bunches. A couple things here. A couple things. One, the Florida Panthers are bullies. And I don't even mean that in like a bad way or in a negative way. But those dudes just beat you to pieces. And I'm just not quite sure I see any of the remaining 3 teams being able to do that, or to carry or play with them, especially the Carolina Hurricanes. I think this series in the East is going to go pretty darn quick.
Oh, yeah. To me, the Florida Panthers are the Eastern Conference version of what the Blues and Jets series was, where it was like, dude, this is brutal. And it's not the other team doing it. It's one team that's doing all of it.
Yeah.
I thought Carolina would have a shot in that series because they had the rest. They play such a structured brand of hockey There is no pushback with the Carolina Hurricanes, though. And, I mean, there's 4 lines deep of the Florida Panthers where good luck trying to get underneath one of their skins. Like, the third line has Brad Marchand on it.
Yeah.
When you get through Kachuk and Bennett and Verhaeghe, then you get to Brad Marchand. And then you also got to worry about the Ekblads and the Nico Mikolas. Like, that is a burly group that I don't know how teams are going to be able to handle them. We were talking about this last week. Like, if they win another cup, even get to another Stanley Cup final, I mean, you have to be talking about them in the same context that you talked about the Penguins, that you talked about the Kings, the Blackhawks, because they're not just like a one-trick pony now. They're going to be here for a little bit of time.
Yeah, to me, it's what needs to be done. These teams know what needs to be done, and you can go back 10, 15, 20 years, probably further back, and I know this has been said before, but look at when teams won the Stanley Cup, and then look at the 2 or 3 years prior to that. What happened to them? They probably win a couple rounds. They probably got knocked out. They took a hard loss. You look at the Blues. They had some success the years prior to, and it just shows you what needs to be done. And I think that's what Florida went through. And then you look at Tampa Bay. Remember, they were swept by Columbus, and then they went on their run. So I feel like Florida is that team that says, listen, like, yeah, you got a good team. We realize this is going to be a tough matchup, but we're going to do X, Y, Z that we learned the past few years, and it's going to work for them.
They have 109 points the one year, and they got bounced in the first or the second round, and then from there it's been get to the Stanley Cup final and lose, win the Stanley Cup, and then this season looks like they're going to be back at the final once again.
Well, and it almost seemed, too, that there was a while there, and I know that there were some injuries, especially to Kachuk and things, where I know they didn't, they don't even have home ice in this particular series. Yeah. But for those guys, they didn't care.
That's the thing. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Like when the team gets hardened in the years prior to them having a lot of success, it's like they go on the road and they don't have success, and then all of a sudden they figure out, okay, in order to win on the road, this is what you need to do. Then you get to a point where you've done it, and then it's like, okay, this is nothing.
Yeah,
like,
they've done the polar opposite of what the Toronto Maple Leafs have not done, and that's learn from their past misfortunes and actually improve on it.
Okay, well, we're going to get there in just 1 second, but before we do, talk to me about the West. How do you see this shaking out? I was a doubter of Edmonton going into the playoffs. I thought that they were too banged up, but boy, they have gotten healthy, and they look really good. I mean, is this a team that, A, can beat Dallas and move on to the final, and part B, is this a team that can challenge Florida and maybe beat them, take them down, and win the Cup?
I think either of these Western Conference teams can challenge Florida. I don't know if they can beat Florida because of what we just said previously. Mm-hmm. I don't know how they're going to stack up physically against the Panthers because the Panthers are just bullies right now. I don't know how to read this Oilers-Stars series, and I don't know about you guys, but I feel like this one's going to go 7. I feel like Dallas has the edge because of their depth. But, man, look at the Edmonton Oilers guys who have scored goals in this postseason. It's been Corey Perry. It's been Evander Kane. It's been Matthias Janmark. It's been Kasperi Kapanen. Like, their depth have been doing damage just as much as McDavid and Draisaitl have. And that would have been my lean, saying, like, well, Dallas is deeper. Dallas has got 4 lines that can beat you. But Edmonton has that right now. I guess I resort back to goaltender. Do you trust Jake Ottinger or do you trust Stuart Skinner? Because Skinner was pulled in the first round, and then when he got back in, he had back-to-back shutouts to help Edmonton eliminate who they just beat.
Was it Vegas?
Vegas, yeah. Thank you. So I would lean Ottinger in the Stars, but I don't know how to read this one. I think it's just going to be a 7-game series.
Yeah, it could be. I think it's going to be Dallas. I think they're too deep, and I don't know that I trust the Edmonton, secondary scoring to continue to sustain that. And I don't know that I count on Kapanen.
You're not going to count on dude when he scored that goal. I'm like, you got to be kidding me! Come on!
And it's the goaltending too. I mean, Ottinger 100% of the time, right, over Skinner. And I think the situation there, it should be Dallas. And then when you get into that Cup final, I would love to see Dallas and Florida. I realize that Carolina plays the game the right way and does the details right. And, Brandon Moore deserves something good to happen with all the success they've had. But I like Dallas and Florida.
Boy, it's been really amazing in this playoff series, specifically seeing Mikko Rantanen kind of get himself settled into life as a Dallas Star. Holy Toledo, boys. He is a good hockey player.
Yep.
Is he a player alone if Dallas got to the finals? I mean, I don't want to say player alone, but when you have a player like that, a talent like that, and maybe a series that you go in as the underdog, does he help kind of level the field a little bit, knowing that he could take over a game himself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because when you go into it, the first thing people are talking about is you got to stop McDavid and Draisaitl, which good luck on that. But I'd argue Edmonton's got to figure out how to solve Mikko Rantanen, because Colorado was a casualty. Winnipeg was a casualty just from Mikko Rantanen putting the team on his shoulders. And I do think he can win a series himself. We saw him do that multiple times. He's just got the offense that is on the same ilk as what Draisaitl and McDavid do. Every time the puck's on his stick, he could find the back of the net. So that's going to be the part with Edmonton, and that goes back to goaltending. I would put all of my money on Jake Ottinger figuring out a way to solve McDavid and Draisaitl over Stuart Skinner trying to figure out how to solve Rantanen. Because think about it. Connor Hellebuck, not a very good goaltender. And then the first-round matchup, they went up against Mackenzie Blackwood. I'd say average goaltender. So Dallas really hasn't gone up against world beaters, and now they're going up against Stuart Skinner, who hasn't been a great goaltender.
I want to talk about our friend Craig Berube and those Toronto Maple Leafs.
Blow it up.
Here's the thing, if I'm a Maple Leafs fan, that bothers me as much as anything else, all right? If you lose in 7 to the Florida Panthers, that to me is one thing. But it is how specifically Games 5 and Game 7 went, where you got your asses handed to you.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that Mitch Marner is an elite talent. I understand that John Tavares is still playing at a very high level. I'm just not sure, guys, how you run that back anywhere close to kind of how you have it now.
No.
I mean, and also, too, and maybe this is just an oversimplification, but Toronto needs some nasty, like a big dose of nasty. And I think you even said it to me when we were talking about, I don't remember, but like Aaron Ekblad on the back line of that Maple Leaf team, somebody that's just a mean son of a bitch is what they need. What do you guys like? And then Brendan Shanahan, he's been there for a friggin' decade and they haven't won. So like, is he going to keep his gig? There is a lot cooking for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and just as a hockey fan, an outsider, I love watching it. You know, I love it.
Well, first of all, they cannot bring it back. They cannot. Yeah. And listen, I don't want to act like, I told you so type thing, but like there's not enough grit. There's not. And when you look at that team, yes, they're going to look good in the regular season. They're going to score some highlight reel goals. You go to Toronto, there's going to be 90 feet TV up in every bar, and Toronto Maple Leafs are on, and is this the year? But when you step back from the situation and you watch that team, there's just not enough playoff material. Like, there's just not. And so you talk about, they need to play nasty. So what do? They bring in Ryan Reeves. Well, that's not the answer to it.
And gave him 3 years, which was so weird.
It's not, I'm not picking on Ryan Reeves, but it's not the Ryan Reeves that needs to come in and give you the nasty. It's that third line checking. It's that desperation type hockey. And Craig Berube said it's the mindset, like more than anything. And now listen, every coach in the NHL, like a Craig Berube when he was here in St. Louis, you'd look at that Toronto situation from afar and you'd say, gosh, what is it up there? Like, what's going on the inside? How do they deal with these players? Are they on top of them in terms of this is what we need during the playoffs? And every coach probably feels like they could go in and make a difference. Obviously, Craig Berube felt like he could go in and make a difference. Then you go and you're in the middle of that thing, and you look around and you realize these star players are not digging in. Like, we saw the Sean Avery tweet, right? Where it wasn't his tweet, but it was his video where he's talking about Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner's going to make $14 million. And if you watch that one replay from the other day, there's 3 or 4 mistakes in the same sequence.
That Game 5 one was watching, turn the puck over and then watch the puck go from guy to guy to guy to the back of the net.
Yeah, and if you're a GM who calls the owner and says, hey, Mitch would come here, we give him $14 million. If I was the owner, I'd take him that clip and say, this is what we're getting for $14 million?
That's the part. I mean, for me, you mentioned, Donnie, that they need a lot of just pissed off, badass guys. If I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs ownership group, I'm looking at the Florida Panthers and saying, cool, I want Sam Bennett, I want Brad Marchand, and I want Aaron Ekblad. Those guys represent more for playoff hockey than any of the guys on my roster.
You could get 2 of those guys for $14 million.
Yeah, and I mean, think of what they gave up. Now, I give them credit. I think their defense was good in the playoffs, and I know some of those scores don't resemble it, but to me, that was the offense just not playing well. But they had Christopher Tanev, who's a really good defenseman for them. Morgan Riley was not good in the playoffs for him, has been in the past. But think of the guys that they acquired at the deadline and what they gave up for them. They acquired Brandon Carlo from the Boston Bruins and gave up their best prospect in Fraser Minton and I believe a first-round draft pick. And then to get Scott Lawton, who averaged about 13 minutes a game in that playoff run, was their fourth-line center. They gave up a first and a second-round pick for that guy. And those were guys that didn't contribute to anything for that roster. So you can sit here and say that, yeah, you can't run it back with the core four, and they can't. You can't bring Marner back. I don't think you should bring Tavares back. I don't like to throw out there because Shanahan was one of my favorite players growing up, but I don't think he can be back.
You can't. I think everybody respects Brendan Shanahan, but 11 years is
You can't do the
years.
Shanahan plan anymore because, look, he wanted to keep going with the core four, and it hasn't worked, so you got to bring somebody fresh in. But let's be honest about this right now. Matthews isn't getting any younger. Nylander isn't getting any younger. You still don't have goaltending. I mean, you can say get rid of those and try and bring in different players. I don't know how many more years you got left of being in this Toronto Maple Leafs like dominant window.
Well, and also too, and I know that this is nothing that we're ever going to find out. But wasn't there a point in the season that Austin Matthews went to Germany
that was
get
preseason?
Yeah. And it
was preseason. Okay,
yeah.
And he was probably banged up here in the series too. But
Still,
you're
Austin Matthews. You're one of the best players in the league. We need to see more from you in series like this and games like this.
Can't score one goal.
Period. End of story. Yeah. Boy, what a disaster. I am thankful that is not my hockey team.
I will say, too, though, like the reason that my theory, the reason they brought in Craig Berube was, look, we're going to let this plan run one more year with Berube to see if he can change it. If not, we're going to start deferring to Craig Berube to find out what he needs to win. Yeah. Because that's why you bring Berube in. Uh-huh. You bring a coach who's won a Stanley Cup with the pedigree that he has because you believe his influence will affect the team. Hitch had that with the Blues, right? When they brought him in, it was like, hey, what do you want? I remember they traded for Chris Russell because Hitch had him in Columbus because he blocked shots, and they needed guys who blocked shots. And what did they do? They traded for Chris Russell. So I would imagine Berube's going to have some type of influence on the decisions moving forward with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
All right, so there's been a ton of coaching changes in the NHL since the season ended, or the regular season ended. Guys, are there any of these moves that you have seen so far? Quenneville with the Ducks, Sullivan with the Rangers. Are any of these coaching changes ones that you go, I like it, I could see that really working out? The Ducks, I kind of feel like Coach Q is picking up like a lot of work that the guy before him did. Was that Cronin?
Yeah,
was the guy that got let go? They were up like 15 or 20 points from last year. Uh-huh. So Coach Q's taking that team going, all right, thanks for the hard work that you've done. But I mean, do you see any of these new coaches and new spots, Tocchet in Philadelphia being good fits?
Those are my two that I liked. I loved Tocchet in Philadelphia. I think that's going to make Philly a playoff team next year. And I do like the Quenneville stuff with Anaheim. I know people don't like it or agree with it because Quenneville's back in the game. It's impossible to set that stuff aside, but if you look at the hockey side of it, I actually think Quenneville's going to make Anaheim a very good team. Pat Verbeek's a good general manager. Quenneville still has the system, I believe, to make it competitive, and they had a decent squad last year. And now, you think of them, I think they have like $35 million in cap space available to them for this upcoming season. So I could see Quenneville coming in and talking about bringing in a couple of players, difference makers for their team. Yeah, I think Anaheim is going to make somebody in the Pacific Division not a playoff team next year, which I think is going to surprise some people.
Yeah, he's going to make them good. And say what you want to say about the Quenneville situation. That was, obviously time moves on. You hope that you learn, and you hope that Joel learned from that situation. But I think he's going to be good for that young team. My only thing is, look, he's a guy with, second most wins in the history of the game, and 67 years old. How does he work with kind of a younger team that they're trying to build up, especially with some of those young players? But I like Tocchet. Like, can you imagine being Rick Tocchet? Like, he's going through that week where Vancouver says, okay, we're not going to exercise the mutual option. We're not going to, say, hey, we want him back. We're going to let him decide. And he goes, okay, I got a guy making $11.6 million AAV who's not producing. I don't have a practice facility. I just went through a year of a soap opera drama. Wait, Philly's calling? Okay,
not to mention Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
Who knows how long he's going to friggin' be there.
Yeah. And so he goes to Philly, which when I think of Rick Tocchet, you think Eastern Conference, Philly, Pittsburgh type thing. So I think he's going to go there and thrive. And the one that we didn't necessarily touch on, but I think Sullivan
in New York.
In New York, it's obviously a big market. It can be a good team because they spend money. They're probably going to have to move some parts around, right? But the one thing with Mike Sullivan, we know he's a great coach, but he was in Pittsburgh a long time, had a ton of success, and these NHL coaches just can't last that long. He broke what you call the norm for an NHL coach being in it. So he's going to go to New York. I think he'll be successful there.
I'm curious about that one because I think the New York Rangers have more roster problems
they
that
do.
Mike Sullivan's going to be able to fix. And not taking anything away from Sullivan because he's a great coach, but I also think Sullivan, his success came from Sidney Crosby dominating as long as he did. And they don't have that on the Rangers team. I mean, Chris Kreider's taken a step backwards. Zibanejad has been kind of vocal. Panarin's been vocal about how frustrating it's been. So I'll be curious about that one. And then we haven't even mentioned the ones that didn't bring in a coach yet. Like, what's Vancouver going to do? That's already somewhat of a disaster.
The Kraken?
The Kraken, what are they going to do? I've heard Chicago's not really going to be competing, but you're in this window now where it's like, dude, you've drafted all these guys. Now you got to start doing something. They're talking about the former Red Wings coach, Jeff Blazel. I mean, like, there's a lot of, like, openings, and I don't know who's going to get hired. Like, is John Tortorella going to be back somewhere? Is Laviolette going to be back somewhere again? Are they going to keep this retreading process going?
Well, I mean, you would assume that it's just going to be placeholders in those organizations because that's kind of seems like where they are for the most
Especially
part.
although the Kraken were like supposed to be this team that's ready to compete, and then all of a sudden it's like, nope, we're not. Are we going to sell pieces off? Let's fire the coach.
Yeah, and let's tie this into the Blues for a second.
Yes.
Jim Montgomery, this is why Doug Armstrong acted when he did.
Totally.
This is why he made the move in November to bring in Jim Montgomery and to not let this get to the summer and have Jim Montgomery off and thinking about where he wants to go and where's the best spot. And if you ask Jim Montgomery, I think he's talked about this a couple times, he said that St. Louis was the one team where I would have, which he did, obviously, accept the job right there and then. Okay, let's take it right now and let's move forward. Any other job, he said that he would have waited on, but Doug knew, hey, look, there could be a lot of changes, which there are every offseason, but it seems like, the numbers we just went through, there were a lot this offseason. So that was quick acting on the Blues part.
Since we're talking about coaching real quick, because we didn't hear or anybody ask this question at the Doug Armstrong end of season press conference. Have you heard anything about the assistant coaches for the Blues? Because I know Steve Ott's name has been out there in terms of potential next new head coach, but I haven't heard him connected with any teams lately.
I have not. What I can tell you there, and this is nothing like from Doug Armstrong. We did not talk to him about that at the end of the season, but when they hired Drew Bannister, they put out the press release that said the assistant coaches were right in line with Drew. So he had a 2-year deal. So they have one more year left on their contracts in terms of Ott and Mike Weber, David Alexander, those guys, Babcock. So I think it's a situation where unless something changes, I would expect those guys to be back next season. And I'm going to address that question in a mailbag in the next couple of days. But I think that, and especially you look at the relationship and Alexander Steen, who's coming in as the GM, has with a Steve Ott, so on and so forth. I can't imagine that with the success they had down the stretch that they'd be
want to change things.
Well, speaking of the world famous athletic mailbag with the one and only Jamie Rutherford.
That's right.
I was reading there this morning, and I got to tell you guys, and listen, I understand that I have been a part of this. I understand that some of this is on me, but I cannot wait for July 1st till we know whether or not Jordan Kyrou is going to be here or not. Because I am already, I'm telling you, at the amphitheater when people at Point Fest are asking me about the Blues, when my neighbors are asking me about the Blues, virtually every single one of them is, are you going to trade Kyrou? I'm already tired of it. And the thing that I just keep coming back to, and we've had this conversation so many times.
We did? I don't remember. Alex, you remember?
I've never talked to Jordan Kyrou on this podcast.
All of you guys that are so horny to trade him, where are you? What are you getting in return? How are you going to make up the 36 goals and the 70 points or whatever that he had? I feel like a year ago, we had legitimate reasons to think, okay, man, maybe this is a guy we should try to flip. But I feel like this past season, a lot of different expectations were put on Kyrou. I thought he had a great season offensively. He was way better in his own end than he ever had before. I thought that he took a step as a player. If he's taking a step in maturity and process, unless we're getting something tremendous for him, I don't know why people are so eager to get rid of this guy. I just really don't understand it.
I personally think people like fantasy GM, people like the fantasy of bringing in a new face, and the only guy you get rid of that you're okay with is Jordan Kyrou because of all of the bad past moments with him. And I think all of that has blinded you from what this past season was, which has been, hey, this is a dude who's gone 3 straight seasons with 30 or more goals. Not happened since Keith Tkachuk. This is a guy that's put up another 70-point season, and he's a guy that found chemistry with Dylan Holloway. I'm not opposed to hearing people's trade proposals of would you trade Jordan Kyrou, but if I'm even listening to it, show me the piece that's coming back that's better. Because the people that say we'll trade Kyrou for Brady Tkachuk, that's not getting it done.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but as much as earlier in the season I was, hey, Ottawa fans, please keep pissing off Brady Tkachuk so that they'll trade him. That ain't happening anymore. That dude is not going anywhere.
Even in the hypothetical world that Ottawa says, we need a change, he doesn't want to be here, let's trade him. You're not getting Tkachuk for Kyrou. Mm-hmm. It's going to be Kyrou plus Neighbors or Bolduc or Holloway or Snuggerud plus a first-round pick plus more. Yep. Like Brady or Matthew Tkachuk, and I know he's a better player than what Brady is on paper, but Matthew got a dude who put up 100-plus points and a defenseman who was a number 1 defenseman and a prospect and a first-round pick. So Ottawa's not just trading away Brady Tkachuk for Jordan Kyrou. So are you going to fill 3 holes for one dude? I don't think so.
Yeah.
You're not trading Kyrou unless you're upgrading your offense.
Yeah, you need offense. You need a guy who's scored 30 goals in the league before, so that potential's there. You're not trading him for a guy who you hope can be a 30-goal scorer one day, because Kyrou has shown it. Here's my thing with the Kyrou situation. I'm not opposed to the idea of trading him. I think that if you find that guy out there, I think that there are players out there that, we can't just think of as we sit here and talk and know that they're available. That's the biggest thing. Are they available? You don't know. So if somebody came to the table and said, would you trade him for this guy? Okay, then we'll analyze the situation. My thing, when I think about the potential of the Blues trading Kyrou is Alexander Steen looking at the player and saying, good player, could be a great player, made huge strides this year. Maybe he scores 45 next year, but is he a guy that we can count on in the playoffs? Does he have enough fortitude, enough grit, enough of what it takes to win in the playoffs? Because otherwise, he's going to look cute scoring 40 goals in the regular season, and then you lose in the first or second round because you're not digging enough to become that playoff player.
Here's my question to that, though.
He seems like he'd be a perfect player for the Toronto Maple Leafs in that case.
And
sorry,
that's the
seriously.
thing. That's what they got from those guys.
Well, and think of the guy that's asking those questions in Steen. This is a guy that takes all of that into consideration. My question to that would be, how much say does he have in that now? Because Armstrong is still in charge. Mm-hmm. Steen doesn't take over until after next season. And by July 1st, he's locked into a no-trade clause.
Perfect response, and I totally agree. I operate under the assumption that those two are working hand in hand, and I would think that Doug Armstrong, who is massively intelligent, would see it the same way in terms of, can you win with Jordan Kyrou in the, I almost said Steen in the playoffs. Yeah, you can win. We saw that
we did
in
that.
2019. Can you win with Alexander Steen? Yes, you can. So can you win with Jordan Kyrou? And obviously they're having heart-to-heart conversations behind the scenes. And if Steen, I also think that Doug Armstrong has to, I don't want to say give up a little bit of the decision-making, but I would think that if Alexander Steen is taking over, you would want to know, okay, is this a guy who fits your vision of the team, right? And if Alex says, no, he doesn't, then okay, well, even though I think he could, I'm talking about Doug Armstrong, I'm taking into consideration what the guy who's taking over this job is telling me, and then, see what's out there. But again, not looking for a trade, not saying a trade. All I'm saying is that they have to decide, is this a guy who can help you in the postseason?
And then another thing that I read in the mailbag, and somebody suggested, 2 years left on Justin Falk's deal, and obviously the Blues would love to find a taker, but I mean, realistically, Falk is on this team when the season starts, right? I mean, most likely.
I think so. I think the fact that he wears a letter and the fact that it's $6.5 million for 2 more years is not going to be as desirable for another team. I would say the more likely route is that a Nick Leddy could be on a different team by the start of next season, because that's 1 year at $4 million, $4.5 million. You've got Tyler Tucker. You've got Matt Kessel. Do they bring another veteran in like a Suter to be an extra defenseman for them? and then you're opening up $4.5 million to potentially use for that centerman if you need that one. Mm-hmm. That would be my theory on what the more likely scenario is with defense, because people don't like to hear it because people don't like Justin Falk, which he has his moments, which I'm sure are frustrating for a lot of people. He did play well with Philip Broberg, and in the postseason, minus a couple of mistakes that he had with the puck on his stick, he did play pretty well for the Blues, considering he was the guy that led in ice time for a majority of those games against Winnipeg.
Yeah, they're not going to pay to move him. They're not going to give up a draft pick to get out of the contract.
Not like what they did with Kevin Hayes.
Yeah, I think they're perfectly fine with him coming back in the top 4, and maybe if he slides down to third pair at times. He's a low-maintenance guy who, whatever we say, he still works hard.
Yeah.
And with Philip Broberg, they had decent numbers, even though Falk was a -9. And my thing with Falk is the offense. Like, he was a guy who put up 13, 15 goals, 35, 40 points for a couple years now, and then it's just not there. 4 goals, 2 years ago?
Yep.
A couple, 2, 3 goals this past year. And if you're going to get that kind of ice time, he's right up there with Parayko, and you're also running that second power play. There's got to be some point production.
Well, and see, that would be, like, if he's here, you've got the guys that you don't have to use him on the power play.
Yeah.
Like, you've got Fowler now, who's your number 1 power play quarterback. Parayko should be on that power play. I mean, that slap shot, we saw it multiple times down the stretch. And on top of it, you got Broberg, who provides offense. I'm not saying Broberg is a power play quarterback, but could he get some time on the second unit and provide a little bit more offense? Like, you don't have to use him in those scenarios. You could use him, which I know people don't like the idea of a $6.5 million defenseman playing third pair minutes, but you could technically use him in that role if you've got guys that can play higher up in the lineup for you. So you're looking at one spot on the right side, and Falk is a defenseman who is a veteran who can move the puck well. It's just a matter of what you're able to tinker with in terms of salary.
The last couple things here on our way out. JR, I know in the article where you gave the teams gave the Blues players grades throughout the year, one of the things that you talked about in the article was extensions for Broberg and Holloway. Do you guys see that happening this offseason? Do you think that's something that happens during the season? Do you think that those players go, you know what? Maybe I'm going to sit on this because, boy, I could cash in if I have another really great season here.
Yeah, my thought is that it could happen. The way it does happen is if the players look at the offers from the Blues and say, this makes all the sense in the world. I'm doing it right now. And they don't have to. Like, they can look at the situation and say, okay, well, guess what? That 8-year deal for X amount is going to be there next year too, assuming no injuries, things like that. I don't see these guys not producing next year. Right. I mean, Dylan Holloway put up 30 next year. So I think that if you're Dylan Holloway and you're Philip Broberg, you got to feel good about your situation, and it has to be a situation with the cap going up. Like, these guys aren't going to take, let's just say, 8 times 6. And no. They're not. And so if you come to the table 8 times 8, whatever, I think that could make sense for them to do. If not, then what they're going to do is sign a deal, and then in 3 or 4 years, then the cap's going to be $115 million. Players are going to be making $15 million, and these guys are making $7 million going, what did I do? Like, right. They're not going to sign up for that.
The wild part about all of this is, like, when they gave Thomas and Kyrou those contract extensions, in my mind it was like, okay, well, they're not going to give anybody more money than Thomas and Kyrou because those guys are the faces of the team, right? Mm-hmm. Buchnevich was right underneath them. Nobody else is making that money.
You kind of saw the pecking order.
Yeah, that's where it was. I mean, I don't think Holloway's getting that type of money unless he has another phenomenal season, and then you're probably saying, well, the market's going to pay him that. Broberg, on the market, Broberg's agent's probably saying, you're a $9 million defenseman. And I know that sounds crazy to say, but look at what some of these guys, like Evan Bouchard's going to be probably making $9.5 million, and he put up in the regular season about the same amount of points, and a better plus-minus was on Broberg's side. So if I'm the Blues, I'm going to him and I'm saying, what do we need to do to get this done? Because those two have to be a part of your future.
So it's a valid point that you bring up about the 8.125 for Thomas and Kyrou. The one thing is that the cap has been stale for 4 or 5 years now.
Totally.
It's finally going up, and it's going up big time. Big. And even though you can't imagine a world where 2 guys come in, Holloway, Broberg, and now all of a sudden they're getting paid more money than a Thomas, Kyrou, we have to look at the situation with Thomas and Kyrou. They got paid big time based on what the Blues projected them
Flat
to be.
Cap,
they were like, hey, listen, we don't want a Matthew Tkachuk situation where Thomas and Kyrou want to leave as soon as they produce. So then Doug said, okay, we'll give them probably more than they're worth right now, just to get them locked up long term. And then this always happens where over a 5, 6, 7 year period, you're going to have guys that start to eclipse the Thomases and the Kyrous.
Yeah,
eventually.
You can't stay under them.
You can't stay under them, and then all of a sudden their deals are going to be up, and they're going to get $11 million. So it's just how things evolve. So I understand where Doug wants to stay under that 8.125, but you can only do that for so long.
Yeah, which I don't know if Holloway's going to be in that stratosphere,
and he might not
yet. But if you want to lock him up long term, you're going to have to make the juice worth the squeeze. I think Broberg's the one that's probably already looking at it, saying like, "Hey, not acting as if the Blues aren't going to get him locked up." But I mean, if I'm his agent, defensemen are a high commodity in the market. You see what they get paid, and Broberg's 23 years old, and he's already been playing like a top 4 defenseman. So that's going to be a tough one. But if I'm the Blues, I go to him right away and say, "What do we need to do to get this locked up?"
One of the very first folks that I saw at Point Fest this past Saturday was Jerry Jost, the absolute incredible axe-playing, guitar-slinging badass for the Urge. And literally gave me a big hug, and he said, "Boys, nice job on the Steiner interview."
There we go.
And we have had, an insane response to that Alex Steen interview. It is our most watched episode, clearly, and we just want to thank you guys.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, like, an incredible amount for watching that and for sharing that. We really, really, really greatly appreciate it. And, we expect this next hockey season to build the podcast even bigger, and working with the Blues and trying to blow this up even more. So what do the people need to do? Because I completely forgot what you told me to say.
Full disclosure, ladies and gentlemen.
Now Alex has to remember.
Yeah, I was going to say, funny, because I don't remember.
But just to make sure that you are getting our episodes right when they break, you could subscribe on the YouTube channel, and you can subscribe for notifications on the YouTube channel, as well as your Spotify, whatever, as well, so that it'll alert you when there's a new episode.
Yeah, if you're an audio-wise person, wherever you get them from, whether it's on the Apple, the Spotify, or 101 ESPN, set the notifications for it so that every single time we put a new podcast out, which once the season really gets underway again and the off-season free agency training camp, we put one out every week, sometimes 2 a week. So make sure you have those notifications and do the same over on YouTube. You can subscribe for the 101 ESPN STL on our YouTube page. And then I think there's a notification next to the Last Minute Blues podcast tab so that every time a new episode comes up on YouTube, you get alerted that, hey, we just dropped a new episode, and it pops up on your phone. Easy access to it.
Donnie, any chance we can get the Urge on at some point?
It's very funny that you say that because Jerry and John, Jerry is a part of the Jost family, the legendary hockey family in St. Louis with CBC. John Pisoni grew up with Jerry. They played hockey together. John is the drummer for the Urge, as well as El Monstero and the Led Zeppelin tribute. And literally, watching John Pisoni play drums is one of my very favorite things. He can play anything, and the son of a bitch doesn't even look like he's trying. It is just unfreaking believable. But both huge hockey guys, and we're both just like, hey, if you want us on the podcast, you let us know.
Awesome.
Yes.
So we will absolutely have them come through. And also, too, when we get them through, we'll obviously talk our share of hockey, but these guys have some absolutely incredible stories from being on the road, from touring with bands, being in a band is kind of like your own, and I don't remember who I saw kind of describe it, it's like being in your own kind of gang. And they have just been through a lot together
all
as
about
people.
Gangs.
Can
Part
they,
of a really big one in Jefferson County.
Yeah, big time. Can
Big
they
time.
teach somebody with sausage fingers how to play the guitar?
Yeah, I'd love to learn how to do the drums.
I got a guitar as a present. I had it for 2 months. I was like, this isn't going to work, and sold it.
My brother tried for so long to try to just get me to do "Smoke on the Water," the Deep Purple song, which is supposedly like the easiest, most basic. As you're learning, that's how you go. And my brother's the most patient dude, and he got so just like you're not gonna be able to do this. Yeah. You're not.
You're dumb. Give me the guitar. You cannot play this instrument.
I was like, Mary had a lift.
I mean, when you see those guys that are playing that, are playing anything, and they look so effortless as they're doing it, they're not watching themselves.
I know.
It's just really great. And that's one of the things with Jerry and John specifically. I understand that they're a St. Louis band, and that's kind of its own sort of moniker, whatever. But if you're watching these guys play, they are world-class musicians, And so, Yes, we will have Jerry and John on the podcast, and like it's also great talking to them about the Urge song or the Blues goal song.
I love that goal song.
They're so proud of that.
I know.
I mean, they're like cheeks.
It's funny.
Like
when it first happened, I didn't like it because I loved the old, like, you know, when the Blues go marching in, like the old one.
Yeah.
But then it's like after that first season where it played, and I think it was 16-17 or maybe 17-18 when it played, but I was like obsessed with it.
The first year that they used it was the year they won the Cup.
Oh, it was the 18-19 one?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say because I fell in love with it after that first season,
Now,
which makes sense.
I guess so.
Yeah, easy to, right?
Do the Blues or did the Urge believe that they had a little piece of that Stanley Cup?
They should.
Well, so does Laura Branigan.
There's sometimes, and Alex can vouch for this, I'll have my head down because I'm writing, and then all of a sudden I'll hear the song, and I'm like, oh, the Blues scored.
And I know probably people are asking, you know, why we're back in this studio and not in the big, beautiful one. We are going to be in there by July, August. That is confirmed. And then once we get in there, we will be in there regularly. For right now, they've got other stuff that they're trying to coordinate. So we'll be back in here for the next couple. But I told them we're only going to probably do a couple a month because there's not a lot going on.
Yeah.
Once the draft happens, once free agency opens up, which about a month from now, JR, hockey season's right back
buddy.
at it.
Can I cut my grass first, please?
No, dude, we'll have to save that for another episode because that was a nightmare. But by the time we get to the draft, that's when we'll start to shift into the new studio. And the hope is we can get some big guests like Steen along the way.
Boy, I loved that studio. And also, too, I enjoyed sitting down and be able to like have a conversation with you guys.
I was staring at
and
the
also,
whole
too,
time.
I wish we would have been able to like use some of the footage before we started recording with Steen, because I think that people would be very fascinated to know how much Alexander Steen appreciates the TV show Bluey.
God bless that man. God bless that man.
I thought that was fantastic.
We bonded over the fact that, as an adult, you'll sit down and you'll realize your kids aren't even in the room and you're still watching Bluey. Makes sense.
All right, so I got to get out of here. I got to go be on at least one radio station right now.
Just one.
For our friends, our friend Jeff Burton, Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN, Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, I'm Donnie Fandango. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Last Minute Blues podcast. And as always, let's go Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast. Hear more at 1057thepoint.com.